told someone yesterday.
3,
All right.
2, 1. I was expecting you guys just to keep going.
Welcome to episode 3 of Chat with Gunner. Thank you guys for coming on. The first 2 episodes have been pretty successful for the most part. Just want to remind you to head over to Apple Podcasts. Go to Chat with Gunner, log it in, go over to the reviews, 5-star reviews. Do me a favor. Just give me a 5-star review. If you think this show sucks, don't give me a review. Just do a 5-star. Actually, just give me a review. Any reviews matter. I need 100 reviews within the next 6 weeks.
Here's the deal. If you think it sucks, you're probably living a lie anyway, so go ahead and leave that 5-star review because we need it.
That's true. Hey, everybody, special guest today. This is Gary Lamb. If you weren't following the 60-Minute Broadway prior to switching over to Chat with Gunner, you might not know who Gary is. So I'm going to let Gary give you a little bit of background on himself real quick. Give us a little 30-second introduction or 60-second introduction of yourself.
Man, just have my hands in everything. Promoter, entrepreneur, pastor, husband, dad. Never worked for anybody in my life. I've had my own business since I was 16 years old, and doing what I want when I want. And sometimes that means I'm living on ramen noodles, but it's been fun.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Well, so the title of this is "Don't Be a Bitch." You know, this is the hustle episode. We're going to do a lot of different episodes on Chat with Gunner, but today we're going to talk about hustling and getting out there grinding and what that means. How do you start your day? What's your day look like?
I'm up at 4 a.m., which is not as early as you, but every day at 4 a.m., and I'm at the gym by 4:45. Again, I don't see the results that you see. I'm old and don't know what I'm doing in the gym, but the fact is I'm there, and I've lost 16 pounds lately.
That's great.
Slim and trim for my in-ring debut.
That's great, though.
That's right. And 4:45, I'm at the gym. I'm there till about 6:45, 7. And I just kind of changed my daily routine, actually. And so now what I'm doing is I've divided my day into thirds. And I'm taking the morning for me. And so I do what I want when I want. If that means going to read, that means going to hike. If it means going to hang out with friends. If it means staying on Facebook. Because my problem was I was taking my whole day, and what work-wise should take me 3 hours was taking me 9 hours, because in between doing work, I was jumping on Facebook and jumping on ESPN and reading the news and catching up with text messages.
Yeah.
So now I've been doing this about 3 weeks now, so it's about 10:30, 11 o'clock every day is my time. I'm now starting to work about 11 o'clock.
Okay.
And I'm working till about 4:30, and it's amazing. Once I've got all the junk I want to get out of my way, that seeing what's happening in sports and checking the scores and seeing who's Trump's pissed off and reading this book and reading that book. Once all that's out of the way, I'm quote-unquote working less, but I'm more focused while I'm working.
Yeah.
I mean, now it's straight. So from 11 to 5, I'm not on social media. I don't know if you've noticed in the middle of the day, we're in a group text message. I haven't been responding to people.
Right.
That's my work time. And so from about 11 to 4:30, 5 o'clock, I'm working, and I'm trying to make it a point that when I get home now, that doesn't always work because of when you're your own boss, but I'm trying to make it a point when I'm home now, the third part of my day is my family time.
Yeah.
And they have my undivided attention. I'm not returning phone calls. And again, if I have to, I have to. So I'm trying to divide it, personal, business, family. And I feel a lot more productive. I feel a lot more clear-headed. I feel a lot more organized. And I heard a CEO say he did that one time of a multi-million-dollar company. So I thought, I'm going to try it. And I really think it's helped me. I feel like my work time is more productive because I am convinced that so many people, what they could do in about 4 hours worth of work. I always joke that most jobs are not full-time jobs. Mm-hmm. If you take away all the time they're on social media and they're bullshitting around the office and they're cutting up, and if they were just working, they could do their work in about 3.5, 4 hours.
Right.
And so that's what I'm trying to do. And I'm liking the results. So that's my daily routine right now. I've divided into that, and I'm going to try that for 60 days and see the results and compare them to what I did at the last part of the year, because I was so busy and juggling so many balls at the last part of the year that it was just almost crazy.
Right.
And I needed to get more focused in and be more disciplined. One thing I've learned from you is just very much discipline and being focused and trying to be a little more disciplined in my time, because I'm about to enter my busy season again. It's festival season and wrestling season, and you and I got some things brewing in, combat sports. And so we got a lot going on, and I can't keep going to my wife and saying I'm adding more to my plate.
Right.
If I can't handle what I'm already doing, that doesn't go over real good. It goes over about like screen doors on a submarine.
Right. Yeah, that's really cool. So I can kind of give the different perspective of that. So I work, that typical office 8 to 5
Right.
gig, for the most part. So the reason I get up at 4 o'clock, 3:45 in the morning, is so I can get what I need to get done. Which the main thing for me, the anchor to me, it's funny, Project Rock stuff on, but the anchor to me, what he says is getting in the gym. That's
Right.
my therapy. That's my iron therapy for the most part. It's cheaper than a shrink,
Right.
That's what they say. So, I'm done with that by, I call it 6:15. By the time I get home, it's get ready, go to work. And I try to get into the office early. I was in the habit of getting to the office around 8 a.m., 7:55, 8 o'clock. If there's traffic, I'm late. Now I'm having to come up with some stupid excuse of why I'm going to be late. I'm just an immature 26-year-old kid. That's
Right.
the habit I was stuck into. So now I get there, 7:30, the latest. And I'm not stressed when the day starts. But now I'm there from 7:30 till 5. And that's a long day, And like you're saying, you can probably get done your actual work in 3 to 4 hours.
Right.
Because, probably shouldn't say this, but the majority of the time, I mean, you're looking at your phone, you're texting, you scroll Facebook, you scroll
Talking about sports, talking about politics.
Yes, you're talking to everybody in the office about different type of things you should be doing or could be doing, or what there's a meeting about a meeting about a meeting, and the actual work time, I would say, on an average day is probably 2 to 3 hours.
Right.
For of actual grinding.
Yeah.
I mean, some people are more efficient than the others, and they might grind out 8 hours, but you can't keep that up for a year.
I saw some meme that made me laugh a couple of months ago. I don't know if you remember when Facebook crashed for the day. And I saw a meme. It was like work productivity in America up 475% as Facebook is down.
Oh, I'm sure.
We waste a lot of time.
It can be wasting time, but I also look at it as anytime that I'm doing that, I'm we'll talk about it, trying to like promote my own brand.
Right.
Build my own gimmick in the wrestling world, as we call it,
Yeah.
or building our own brand. And that's what I'm doing when I'm not working.
Right.
So I'm always working. It's just a matter of, am I doing what I should be doing?
Well, yeah, and I didn't mean it in that way because I'm probably to a fault always working on my brand and what I want to do. I just meant as far as employees or people that are working for
No,
someone
absolutely.
else.
I see what you're saying there.
Yeah, I've got a buddy here with me that works for the county, and I'm not going to say what county or his name, but I can guarantee you he's not putting in 8 hours a day because whenever I call him, he answers the phone. And I don't care if I'm on the phone with him for 5 minutes or an hour. He's never told me, hey, I got to go. I'm at work.
Right.
And, so it is what it is. I think it's just human nature in the society we live in. And I think what separates the hustlers from the non-hustlers is, and again, I've learned that a lot from you, is just being disciplined and being focused and trying to stay focused on what I've got to do and getting it done. Getting what I have to do to get done, where I can focus on what I want to focus on,
right.
which is my side hustles. I joke that I don't say in a joking way. Actually, I don't have hobbies. I don't hunt. I don't play sports. I don't keep up with a lot of stuff, man.
Right.
My problem is, and the quickest way to ruin a hobby is let it become a career. Is I get into something, I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna start a business doing this. It'd be a whole lot more fun as making money at it.
Right.
So hobbies don't stay hobbies very long in my world.
Yeah.
And
well, that's me too. I mean, like, the things I do outside of work, or I wrestle, so I'm working out for wrestling, and now this podcast, which is kind of taken over the past year of my life,
Right.
on Thursdays at least, but I'm thinking about it throughout the week for the most part, trying to make it better and learn about it, and eventually I want this to make something.
Right.
It don't have to make all the money,
Right.
but it could make some money for
Right.
sure, with sponsorships or whatever, and I've got to be able to take a little bit of that discipline. We were talking about this earlier. Take this discipline and put it towards, I got to believe in my own bullshit.
Right.
I've got to start believing in my own bullshit, believing in my own hype, and go out there and getting what I
Right.
want instead of just talking about it.
Yeah. I always use the expression, I'm smoking what I'm selling. And they say the most dangerous drug dealer is the one who does his own drugs and believes in them that
Right.
strongly. And, I want to be smoking what I'm selling in whatever I do. And that's a fine line, especially in a world that you and I share. We do wrestling, and I own a wrestling promotion. And people always ask me all the time. You had Dylan Hales on the show last week, and me and him talked this week by phone for the first time ever. And he said, man, I get what you're doing on that's your gimmick. And I said, it is my gimmick, but it's also me. It's
Right.
just me ramped up a little bit.
Yeah.
I am who I am. I'm smoking what I'm selling.
Right.
And for me, in the promoting, it's always been, let's create controversy. It creates cash. I do us against the world better than anyone. And I don't like to be comfortable, because when I get comfortable, I'm naturally lazy. And
Yeah.
so when I'm comfortable, I get lazy. When I feel like I've got a chip on my shoulder and I got to prove everybody wrong because I'm the guy that can't make it,
Right.
I'm going to prove you wrong every single time. And it's why I think a lot of times I jump into business endeavors that I don't know anything about. I'm sure we'll get to that later, but I do big barbecue and craft beer festivals, and I went to one barbecue festival, didn't know anything about barbecue competitions, festivals, or anything. I was like, I can do this better than this. Let's start a barbecue festival.
Right.
I went to a wrestling show. I was like, I can do this better than this. Let's start a wrestling show.
Yeah.
In the process right now, as we talked about earlier, starting MMA promotion. I mean, I'm just now learning about that.
Right.
But I know I can do it better than what I've seen in my state.
Yeah.
I think I can do it better than what I've seen in the Southeast. And so I like the fact that everybody doubts me, because that just pisses me off and makes me want to prove you wrong. And so far, knock on wood, I've proven everybody wrong in every endeavor I've jumped in. I've yet to do one that didn't make money.
Right.
So we'll see if we can keep that streak going.
Yeah, I'm excited about this MMA promotion. I know I'm gonna jump in a little bit and help out.
It's going to be good, and I think it's a natural thing for both of us. And I think that I want to bring the carny aspect to MMA, and I think it'll work. I think the problem is when you get outside of UFC, it just becomes about the fights.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, there's something in all of us men that want to see two guys beat the shit out of each other.
Right.
But man, if you can add the production to it, and you can add the stories to it, because man, everybody has a story. You can create the moments throughout a show. I think you can build something pretty large scale, and that's such untapped waters.
Right.
And so it's the fight game. I'm learning is one of those things that there's not a lot of veterans, because the guys who were in the early days are just now retiring, and they're just now getting into it. So from a promoting standpoint, it's still the wild, wild west, and that kind of excites me. There's not necessarily any rules. There's not necessarily any proven ways that it's worked, and you kind of get to create it as you're going. And man, I do real good and crazy. I've always said if I was a doctor, I'd be a trauma surgeon. I'm just that guy that when things are going crazy, for me, for whatever reason, it always moves a little bit slow, and I can see things that other people don't see. Like if you show up at my festivals, to a lot of people, they're really disorganized during the setup, because a lot of festivals, here's your slot, here's this, and I just kind of wing it as I go. I do better like that, and at the end of the festival, my vendors are, it's the best festival I've ever been to. And
Right.
I operate really well in chaos, and some people don't. And it takes a lot. It's one of the reasons it's really hard for me to build a team around me, because a lot of people don't operate in chaos. And my wife has learned in 6 years to kind of operate in chaos. That's just kind of how we roll.
Right.
And I can't change who I am. Can't change my DNA.
Well, I was reading the Grant Cardone 10-time book, and I told you to read it, and I think you started checking it out.
I'm on chapter 6 right now, I think.
So he mentions at one point, he goes, the first thing you do is you commit. Commit to whatever,
Right.
overcommit, and then figure it out.
Right.
And I've do that quite a bit. I did that without thinking that I was doing it. I would
Right.
say yes to a bunch of things. Yes to wrestling. Yes to this promotion. Yes to that promotion. Yes to this job. Yes to this. I'll do this night shift. And I just kind of figured my schedule out around it. And it all seemed to work so far up until this point. But I'm going to start doing that more. I'm going to start saying yes a lot more and trying to figure it out.
I think people are just have no nuts, man. They have to have all the answers before they step out. They want to see step 5 before they'll take step 1.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't work like that. And so if you need everything laid out, there's no guarantees in life. So whether you're changing a job or you're starting a career or whatever, who knows? It could blow up. It could fail.
Right.
And I've just learned, and we can get into this later, when I was 33 years old, I lost everything.
Yeah.
I mean, like when I tell you I lost everything, like on the front page of the paper, lost everything. And the industry that I was in I was literally 2 weeks before named the 13th fastest growing in that industry.
Right.
Was well on my way, was one of the top leaders in that industry under 40 years old, was traveling all over the country, and literally went from that to living in my car for 3 days. So someone allowed me to move in their basement, and I lost everything. And what I learned from that is it sucked, and it was painful, and I don't ever want to do it again, but it didn't fucking kill me.
Right.
Failure's not fatal.
No.
And so you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, you man the fuck up, and you realize the bills don't stop, and you get after the hustle again. So that kind of changed my perspective on taking risk. If I try something and it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Right.
And I'm big on that too. When everybody brings me an idea, I always look at worst case scenario. I remember there was an adventure one time that I want to start, and I sat down with my wife and I said, if this doesn't work, you understand we're going to lose our house, we're going to lose our savings, and we'll probably live with our 4 kids in a 2-bedroom apartment. Can you deal with that? And she's like, yeah. And I said, okay, well, that's worst case scenario. Worst case scenario, I go work at Chick-fil-A, and we live in a 2-bedroom apartment. I can handle that. So
Right.
let's go try this. Now, had the risk been, man, we lose everything and I die, or one of my kids, something horrible happens to them, or I never rebound again, I don't know that I'd taken that risk. But you look at the cost, you count the cost, and you step out and have the balls to step out. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work out. We live in this society also where we think failure is some kind of bad thing.
Yeah.
Shit, failure, you just learn from it and pick yourself. I know what not to do now.
Right.
And I love the story in Good to Great. Have you ever read that book, Good to Great, by Jim Collins?
It's in my audiobook, but I haven't read it.
So fucking good. It's a little dated right now, probably. It's
Right.
But there's a story in there of IBM hired this intern, and on the first day of the job, the intern made some mistake that cost the company $1 million. And so he walks in the CEO's office and he says, "I guess I'm fired. I'm sorry." And the CEO's, "Why are you fired? We just spent $1 million training you." And I mean, kid's never gonna make that mistake again. I guarantee you.
No, yeah.
And so I think sometimes we're afraid of failure, and man, I don't want to fail. Failure sucks. But you can learn a lot from it.
Sucks real bad.
When
I got into logistics, I had zero clue about logistics. When I say zero clue, like I'd say most people know what logistics kind of means.
Right.
I went there and I was like, so what's logistics? What's that mean? Is that like, I don't know, selling stocks? I had zero clue about logistics.
Right.
And then found out it was transportation. So here's the funny story of my first day. I'm on the phone. They put me in track and trace, and that's where you're like calling and trying to figure out where the drivers are. I know zero terminology when it comes to this new business. So I'm on the phone. I'm like, "Hey, man, this is Gunner with Lipsy Logistics. Just wanted to call and see kind of where you're at." He's, speaking some crazy language or, not the best, broken English. And he goes something about detention. And I go, "Detention? Are you in school? Like, are you in school?" Not, and I was telling people at work, I was like, "Hey, he says he's in detention. I think he's in school. I think he got in trouble." Everybody starts making fun of me because detention's like a driver's late, or a driver's stuck at a place and he's wanting some extra pay. I had no clue. So I feel like an idiot the entire first 2 years I was in logistics. Now I'm, 5 years in.
Right. Killing it. Doing good.
Doing okay, yeah.
Right. Had you not stepped out, you would have never known about it.
Right.
And we're afraid to learn new things. I had some guy message me the other day, and they're like, he heard this MMA thing. He's like, "You're 43 years old." I'm like, "Who gives a fuck if I'm 43 years old?"
Yeah.
Probably going to live till I'm 80. I got 37 more years to live.
Oh, dude, with the science right now, we're going to live to at least 120.
Yeah, so let's go after it,
Yeah.
And I just see stuff I want to do and do it, man. I can't come to the end of my life, look myself in the mirror and be like, "What if?" And so, man, I just chase it and do it. And I love it. It's funny. My wife's grandfather is very, very successful businessman.
Yeah.
And but he's that businessman that's got the gold watch, worked at the company for 50 years, retired from the company. The company hired him back as a consultant. I mean, he's a business genius.
Yeah.
And he can't. He loves me and loves that I take care of his granddaughter, but he cannot comprehend what I do for a living.
Right. It's not stable to him.
It's not stable to him. He doesn't get. What do you mean you've got a new idea? You just started this idea. You just started wrestling a year and a half ago. I don't give a fuck. I'm still going to do wrestling.
Yeah.
Let's add this element to it. Let's do this part.
Right.
And it works for me because I'm a little bit carny. You got to have a little bit of carny in you to do what I do, and so it's worked. And man, I just try to juggle all those balls, and I'm definitely not going to have anybody outwork me.
Right. Well, I'd say me and you, we click because we're both. I'd say like. If you look at a disc assessment, we're high eyes.
Right.
Yes. We're the guys that want to entertain people.
Right.
We're the entertainers in the
right.
group. We want
we want to be the entertainer.
It's not so we don't want people to like us or hate us. We want people to acknowledge us.
We need to, I call it significance.
Right.
Money doesn't necessarily motivate us.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong, we like money.
Right.
But significance motivates us probably more. I've got a buddy I was telling you earlier named Chris, and he's all about personalities and connection. He'll tell you, I'm driven by significance.
Yeah.
I want to be known.
Right.
And I want you to know I'm the fucking best.
Yeah.
And I'm the guy that when I graduated high school and they gave out the awards in the yearbook, I got the award most likely to be a millionaire or end up in prison. Yeah. Like, literally, that's what they said. Like, he's going to be a millionaire or he's going to go to prison trying to become a millionaire.
I was most likely to succeed out of my group as well.
Yeah. And so, I just want to – I probably still have a chip on my shoulder from, whatever girl in high school turned me down. I want to prove her wrong now. You know what I mean? I'm the guy that gets on Facebook and looks at everybody I went to high school with and was like, "Yeah, motherfucker. Remember when you were this? And now I'm this."
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's right, but that's just what motivates me to get out of bed in the morning is to prove everyone wrong.
Right.
When I lost everything, I stayed in the same fucking town. Like, I'm in the same town. It's Canton, Georgia. It's not a big town.
Yeah.
And I love my wife and I this last Valentine's Day went out to eat a couple got seated next to us, saw that it was us, and asked to be moved. And 10 years later, and I love that shit. Get the fuck out of my restaurant. I'm here now. You know what I mean? I didn't go anywhere. And so, significance is important to me. It was I want to walk in the restaurant where I know the owner and I have no reservation and I get seated because, I want to be a big fish in a small pond. It is what it is.
Well, even in Chattanooga's a lot bigger city.
Right.
But I played football, and more so then than now, because as you get a little bit older and kind of fade away a little bit,
Right.
people kind of forget a little bit.
Right.
But still, when I was first out of college, everywhere I went, somebody knew me.
Right.
I literally could not go anywhere in town where someone didn't walk up and say, "Hey, Gunner, how's it going?"
Right.
Now, most of the time, I had zero clue who some of these people were.
Of course.
Even now, people will come up and be like, "Hey, man, how's it going?" Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, and I'm nice, super nice. I act like I remember, but I don't remember most of the people I talk to. I'm terrible with names. I'm decent with faces, but terrible with names.
Yeah,
and
I'm the same way.
I need to get better at that. But at the same time, I'm always setting a goal and going towards something else that I don't have time to remember all this shit.
I'm the guy that can meet you and 20 years later run into you and tell you where I met you and what you were wearing. But I can meet you every day for a year and still not remember your fucking name.
Depends on how significant it was.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Like, what do you mean to me? How'd you, and I hate to say this, but, how'd you help me? What'd you do to, make me remember you?
Yeah, and I think it's also, I used to beat myself up about that. I realize now, again, I caught the face with the place. So any events I'm doing, I'm the face with the place.
Yeah.
I'm the guy at the festival they've seen on the videos. I'm the guy at wrestling they've seen on the videos. I'm the guy, you're the guy. And so thousands of people have seen my face and heard my redneck voice. Doesn't mean I've seen them. You know what I mean? Every Sunday morning I'm on a stage teaching to hundreds of people. They have to remember one person, me. Right. I have to remember hundreds of people. And I don't always recognize them,
Yeah. Well, another funny thing, sometimes I'll get to the point where I'm like, God, I wish people would just leave me alone, or I wish these people wouldn't come talk to me. I'm trying to enjoy dinner or whatever. And then I go, wait a minute, you idiot. First of all, think about who you are. You are nobody.
Right.
First of all, put yourself in the Rock's shoes.
Exactly.
That dude can't go anywhere without someone coming up on an autograph, wanting a picture. And look how he does it.
Right.
Perfect.
Always has time for people. And there's been times that I've had people come to me in a restaurant and want to start talking to me and give me their life story. And I've been never rude. I'll be like, man, I'd love to hear that story.
Yeah.
I'm off with my wife tonight. I'm off with my kids tonight. Why don't you hit me up this week?
Right.
They're never going to hit you up.
Yeah.
But you've not been rude to them. You've put the ball in their court.
Right.
And there are times my wife says, hey, I'd like to go out tonight. And I'm like, awesome. She goes, that means I don't want to go out in this county.
Yeah.
She's like, let's go to the next county over. I want to go over somewhere we don't know.
Yeah.
But the problem is, shit, we were in Panama City Beach this last time, and I'm walking down the beach with my wife, and someone screams out, barbecue and brews guy. He recognized me from the video. We were on a cruise ship, and people recognized me from the cruise ship.
Yeah.
That's the power of social media.
Right.
And so I couldn't imagine being someone like The Rock, or
crazy.
I couldn't imagine being you in a Chattanooga. Again, I'm in a small town.
Right.
It's easy to be the big fish. It's easy to be I call myself the redneck P.T. Barnum. It's easy to be the P.T. Barnum in Canton.
Yeah, but it's still cool though, man.
It feeds my ego, and we're ego-driven.
The couple times I've been down there and we go eat or whatever, you're the man down there. So it's pretty cool.
We're driven by significance.
Pretty cool. So I want to talk a little bit about the MMA, and we'll talk about this. UFC's this weekend.
It is this weekend.
UFC 246, and this is the first fight Connor's going to have in 15 months.
Right.
So I know you've been talking about it. I've been talking about it. Who you got?
Oh, I've got Connor.
Connor?
Yeah, I do. I think that it was a setup fight anyway. I think that they knew Connor needed a good victory over a name.
Uh-huh.
And, obviously Cowboy's great. And obviously you know much more about that sport than I do. I'm just now getting really into it as far as digging deep into studying and stuff. But I think it's Connor's. And I'm always going to go for the cocky, arrogant.
Yeah.
I'm just wired that way.
Right.
I love the confidence. I love the hustle. I love everything. Matter of fact, I was a little disappointed at the press conference. I got it. I understood why it was different.
Bring that up.
I understood it.
Yeah.
But and I respected the maturity, because I hope at 43, people in Canton or people that I'm in business would be like, man, Gary's matured a lot, and he doesn't shoot off at the mouth like he used to.
Right.
And I respected that aspect of it, but I also, man, there was a part of me that was just, I didn't want to hear about the mutual respect.
Right.
And I didn't want to hear about there's going to be blood spilt. It's not going to be bad blood.
Right.
I wanted to be like, I want to knock this fucking redneck out. I wanted Conor McGregor back.
Right.
But I think he's got to get that win under his belt. And I think he knows too, this is not a grudge match. And I think it's been a long time since he's had a fight that was not a chip on it, and that worries me a little bit.
It does. So here's my thing with Conor, and he's the master of mental warfare. He brought that to the UFC, right? So he's the guy that everyone expects to be crazy. Everyone expects to take shots. What if this is mental warfare?
Right.
I think it's reverse psychology.
It very well could be, and I thought the same thing.
When you're giving this mutual respect and all this stuff, I think it's I think he knocks Cowboy out in the first or second round.
Yeah, me too.
And I think it's I'm back, motherfuckers. Like,
right.
I was being nice because I didn't want to hurt his feelings. I didn't want to let him know what was about to happen. Now everybody's about to get ran through.
And I think Cowboy is one of those guys that is so respected that and probably expected the old Conor. And that redneck cowboy mentality, that fires you up.
Yeah.
So to go in there and fire him up, I think Conor, he's expecting this.
Yeah.
Let's lull him to sleep and be like, wow, wait a minute. Because Cowboy's not going to talk shit.
No.
If Conor's not talking shit.
No.
And he's not going to be getting fired up. And
right.
so, I don't know. I mean, I don't doubt anything. I'm a huge Conor fan, man. I love there's nothing I don't love about him.
So Cowboy, he beat Mike Perry a few fights ago. He's beat Alexander Hernandez a few fights ago. I can't remember who it was he beat prior to that. But however, Alexander Hernandez and Mike Perry was coming after Cowboy like in an aggressive way.
Right.
Press conference, pre-fight, got him all fired up, which then Cowboy doesn't do what he was doing at the press conference. He's not being nice, being cheerful,
right.
playing with the media. He'll sit there and he'll be like, listen, boy, you need to shut your mouth before I kick your ass. Like one of those types.
Right.
He gets into like old Western
right.
dad cowboy
right.
mode. So he wasn't like that. So I think he's going to be loose going into the fight, and he's not going to be trying to like put Conor away. That's the problem. You got to put Conor away to get rid of him.
Yeah.
And if he tries to stand there with Conor the entire time.
And he says he's going to stand there.
And listen, Cowboy is a kickboxer. He's had a lot of kickboxing fights as much as he's had UFC fights. I mean, he's had 51 UFC fights. Or not
right.
UFC fights, but MMA fights.
Right.
But I just don't see – I mean, he's 38. Conor's young. I just don't see him beating Conor.
I will say this. If Conor loses, Conor's done. Because it seems like the greats, whether it's any sport, once the fire's gone, the fire's gone.
Yeah.
And so I think this will be a very telling match for Conor to see is his heart and the fire still in the fight game.
Right.
And I think it is. I do think it is.
Yeah.
Or is it into my proper 12 and this hustle and that hustle, or into all the hustles of I want to be a billionaire, as he was talking about on the ESPN interview the other day.
I think his heart is in the fight game, but if he loses by submission after the fight goes to the ground, he will go into boxing.
Yeah.
He's going to make more money.
Huge.
Dana White's getting into boxing with Zuffa now.
Yep.
And I think he'll fight Floyd or he'll fight Manny Pacquiao.
And I just don't understand, after seeing MMA, at all what the attraction is to boxing. Like, growing up my age, I'm a little bit older than you, man. Boxing was the shit.
Right.
You had Tyson and Holyfield and Lewis. And it's so it's so boring now with MMA and UFC taking off like it has. Boxing's almost boring.
Yeah. Well, think of it this way though. Say you're in UFC and you want to see a fight. You want to see two guys. And when people say UFC, they want to see people fight with smaller gloves on but stand up.
Right.
For the most part.
Right.
Until somebody gets knocked down. Which is what Conor brought. Here's what they don't want to see. They don't want to see a guy like Khabib go in and tackle Conor
100%.
and then just beat him up on the ground.
100%.
Or a guy like Nate Diaz getting beat up the entire fight,
Yes.
get him on the ground, and beat him.
Right.
They don't want to see that. So what do you do to fix that? You can only stand up, you put bigger gloves on, you go fight in a boxing ring.
Yeah.
So like Conor and Khabib in a boxing fight, get out of here.
Well, and it's one of the reasons, really, if you go and watch kickboxing, in a lot of ways it's the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
You know, they're standing up, they're not going to the ground. I mean, it's it's a different ball game, and there's got to be a happy middle ground there, because I don't want it. The ground and pound shit's horrible to me.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, if you're looking for guys to establish themselves and win,
right?
That's what they.
Well,
that's
where
what
the
they need to
money's at.
have. But yeah, I don't know. Anyways, yeah. So Dana White's getting into that. That's gonna be cool. But we are getting into MMA, and you are getting into it because you are a guy that sees money.
Yes.
And I like the opportunity because I get to potentially commentate and do the Joe Rogan thing, which is what I'm doing here anyway.
Yeah.
So
it's not just, I don't just see money. I see an open field. I see an industry that especially in Georgia
Yeah.
is wide open.
Wide open.
There's not much competition.
No.
And I see a sport that's going to continue to grow.
Yeah.
I see something that every dude likes. Shit, it's fighting. What's not to draw?
Right.
I see a thing that in the town I live in, based on the building that I own, I can draw people to.
Yeah.
And so I don't just see money. I see fun in it. I see potential in it. And at 43 now, I've probably started 10 to 12 businesses. It's probably time for me to take one of those. I need to prove to myself that I'm not just an entrepreneur. And so I know I can start something.
Yeah.
I know I can start something from nothing, and I can brand it, and I can market it, and I can draw. Now can I create the energy to stick with something that's going to make me money long term? I love wrestling. You and I are in business in the wrestling business, and I love that, and it's fun.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever getting. I mean, if you go to WWE or AEW, that's not going to happen to me. Realistically, my promotion is never going to grow into something like that. That's not me not having vision. It's me being a realist.
Yeah.
And so there's a ceiling in my world to wrestling. It's great. I tell people wrestling has been great fun money for me.
Yeah.
It allows me to have new trucks and go on a vacation and have fun money.
Right.
I couldn't quit everything that I do and walk away from that
Right.
and do wrestling full time. I guess I could if I did it 4 weekends out of the month, and who the hell wants to do that?
No.
And so,
Well, you wouldn't do as well.
right, exactly. Well, I'd have to take it on the road. You couldn't definitely
Yeah.
do it in one town. If you take it on the road, now your overhead goes up.
Right.
And so, but I see MMA as something that has potential to continue to grow, I'm not saying I'm going to do it till I'm ready to retire, but I think I'm always trying to maximize, and I have a theory, we can get into this too, about business. I want to jump on something while it's prime, milk it for all it's worth, but I'm always looking. When I started wrestling, I was immediately looking for what was next. Okay, this is going to have a lifespan. What's next? And now look at MMA. And the minute we start MMA, I'm going to start looking, what's the next trend?
Yeah.
And what's the next thing that we could jump on? I don't care if it's 6 years down the road, 5 years down the road. I want to see it. And, again, I had this theory on where businesses lie. And a pioneer stage, early adapter stage, bandwagon stage. And I want to always be in that early adapter stage.
What do you think the regional MMA scene is?
I think it is, in some ways, pioneer, but I think early adapter, because I think there's been enough established companies that have come along and paid the dues and fought the fights with the state regulations and learned what doesn't work and what does work, that you can jump on it at the early adapter stage. And that's where you always want to be. Wrestling, I think, again, if you're listening to this podcast, you don't really know much about wrestling. We kind of jumped into our wrestling at the tail end of the early adapter, and our promotion was so different and so much, for lack of a word, better, production-wise, building-wise,
Correct.
than anyone else, that it kind of jumped away. It was early adapter, but I definitely think wrestling right now is in a bandwagon stage where everyone's jumping on it. And once the bandwagon stage starts, everyone starts losing money because you've saturated a market. So, but I think MMA in Georgia, especially, and I'm not super familiar with Tennessee. I'm trying to learn more about it. Since you and I talked a couple days ago, I did a lot of research.
Yeah.
Because I think it's wide open too. Because obviously our connections are Georgia, Tennessee.
Right.
And so I think both are still the early adapter stage. I think we have a promotion in Georgia that does great business. MMA, I don't want to say anything bad about them.
Right.
But I also know they've had their struggles finding buildings and finding locations, and they've learned the hard way on some things, and maybe even burnt some bridges.
Yeah.
And so, good, let them go do all that. Not in a bad way. I want them to do it where I can learn from it.
Right.
And know the mistakes not to make and come along. And I want to sit that learning tree all day long. And if I have to learn from them from afar, that's what I want to do. So I think it's still in the early adapter stage.
Yeah. So here's a funny story. So there's a guy, I believe he went to Saudi Daisy High School, which is in town. And he was a heavyweight wrestler there. The only reason I know him is because some of the guys at the office I work at know him. And he got into a bar fight that went viral in Chattanooga. And he's an MMA fighter. And he's in the Valor promotion that I was telling you about. Well, his name is Billy Swanson. I'm going to reach out to him and see if I can get him on here just to talk to him, because that may be a good, contact for us. But I'm going to reach out to him. He just had a fight this past weekend, maybe, or even the weekend prior to that in Knoxville, part of Valor, and he won the fight. So that's pretty cool. And I think he's like 2-1 or 1-1, so he's pretty fresh into it. But he's
Right.
training around here. Anyways, I'll maybe do some research. The promoter for Valor is Tim Loy. So the way he got into it, the XFC, which is out of Tampa, which I think is decently sized. I don't
Yeah.
know, but they were coming up to do a show in Knoxville, and this guy reached out and was like, "Hey man, can I give some posters out? Can I, how can I help?" And then from there went on to create his own and took over like the Tennessee scene. So he
Right.
is Tennessee,
Right, the territory for like
the
the
territory.
wrestling terms.
Yeah, he is Tennessee. And then I was looking at a couple that were in the article. It was like Jimmy Birchfield for CES MMA, Daniel Vell from Hoosier Fight Club, and Chad Bergmeyer from Iowa Challenge. I'm gonna try to reach out to some of these guys,
Yeah.
and maybe we can talk to them and try
Yeah,
to figure out what's
I
going
think it's
on.
going to be an interesting thing, and I'm looking. I'm going to go. I have to take the same approach I took in wrestling. I don't know this industry,
Yeah,
but I don't need to know this industry. I'll have people around me that know the industry. My partner, who I don't know if he's ready to have his name revealed yet. Well, knows that you know it. Who's going to be one of the partners in
well,
it.
I know it as a fan. I don't know, right?
I don't even necessarily know it as a fan.
Yeah,
But I know business principles, and so I know marketing, and I know branding, and I know social media, and so I feel like I can bring those aspects to that, and it goes back to let people do what they're good at.
right.
Let this other guy worry about getting the matches booked and this, and let you worry about the commentating, and let me do what I do. And
Yeah.
All I know is in the past it's worked really well in my ventures, and we'll see if this works too. I feel about as secure about it as I felt about anything. Like I just think at the end of the day, no matter how poorly run it is, and I don't think it's going to be poorly run,
Yeah,
people will always pay to see two dudes square off and bust each other in the nose.
oh yeah,
And that's just the way it is. And I would love nothing more than run tough man competitions. I don't think you can in Georgia.
right.
I just want to see no weight classes, no anything. Just let them get in there
Yeah.
and fight. That's fun, but then people die and you get sued, and it's not a good thing.
Right, yeah, that's not a good thing. Yeah, so I jumped into commentating this past year. I did a UTC football game,
Right.
so that was pretty cool. But, I mean, I can talk about football from behind the scenes, which that was my advantage there. With MMA, I'm excited to try this because it's going to be a challenge for me because I'm going to be giving literally like the fan perspective
Right.
of it because when it gets to certain situations, I know what it looks like, but I don't know really what they're trying to do because I've never done it.
Yeah.
So that'll be cool,
And I think that's what people want.
Yeah.
I don't get me wrong. I think Rogan's as knowledgeable as there is, but he still comes across as
A fan.
the guy you're going to go drink beer with.
Right.
He's still just as excited.
Yeah.
He's not trying to be unbiased. And then when Connor wins, he's grinning from ear to ear, high five it, and that's who I want to listen to. Someone like me, I don't really care about the technical aspect. You don't got to commentate. I don't know. He just got busted in the fucking face.
Yeah,
and,
right.
I don't think he's getting back up. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
sweet.
Cool.
Yeah, how are the guys talking about it at the bar? They're
Right.
about 8 beers in. Like, how's that going on?
And I think you just nailed it. If you're going to reach the everyday man or everyday fan, because man, there's so many women. That's the one thing that's blown me away about getting into MMA is how many women are into it.
Yeah.
Insane. But what is the discussion going to be around the water cooler on Monday?
Right.
That's what I want to hear.
Well, one of the fastest growing sports in high school and middle school right now is girls wrestling,
Yes.
women's wrestling, because of MMA, because they're seeing the money in it.
Right.
And that's the transition.
Yep.
Because if you have a wrestling background, you have the advantage in MMA because if you can't get punched and you can get somebody on the ground, you can win.
Right.
And some of the best girl MMA people are wrestling backgrounds.
Yeah.
So,
And I think going back to the original discussion of this podcast, at the end of the day, the guy who's brought you and me in, he knows no one's going to hustle more than us.
yeah.
So what I don't know about this sport, I'm going to make up for in hustle in
Right.
business and hustle in promoting and hustle in. You're coming to my town, and then if we move it to Chattanooga, we're coming to Gunner's town
Yeah.
and running multiple things. I mean, fish where the pond stopped. You know what I
Right.
mean? Bloom where you're planted.
Yeah.
And so why am I going to go? That was the big deal when I started my wrestling promotion. There was another wrestling promotion in town. And it was like, you can't start here. That wrestling promotion exists. Why would I uproot and go to a town where nobody knows me? I haven't spent 15 years investing and putting on events just to go by some unfucking written code. Fuck that, man.
Right.
I'm invested in this town. I'm going to start it in this town. And when I started it, the crowds were because of the town. Now it's branded out where, that's not necessarily the case. But in the early days, make no mistake about it, the early attendance was because I was invested in that town.
Right.
And I worked that town, and I called in favors, and I asked people to come. And some people decided, man, we love wrestling. We're there every month. It's like, we went there because we love Gary, but it's not our thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's stupid to go, why would Gunner Miller move and hypothetically open a gym in Knoxville
Right.
without opening one in Chattanooga first?
Yeah, it makes no sense.
That makes no sense. This is where your network is. This is where your web is. This is where your seeds have been spread for years.
Right.
And eventually those seeds are going to give, all fruit.
Yeah.
So, I don't care what the code is.
And I will have a gym. I keep saying that. I will have a gym one of these days.
Yeah.
That's even if it's a thing that doesn't even make me money.
Right.
I'm going to have
Right.
a gym,
Well,
because that's like what I want.
Well, you got to make so much money in other areas that you need the tax shelter anyway. You
Yeah.
need some things that lose money.
Right.
You know.
I'm going to have a Iron Paradise Scenic City edition.
Yeah,
That's gonna be
I joke that whatever my festivals make, my wrestling promotion loses. So
Gotcha.
It sets off in taxes.
right. That's perfect.
So, yeah, but I think just getting after and hustling and no fucking excuses. I think we're just surrounded by people that are crippled with fear.
Yeah.
And they just don't have the guts to step out and do it. At the end of the day, you go start a gym and the gym fails. Who cares? Guess what? You're not going to live the rest of your life wondering what would have happened
Right.
had I went and started. No offense to logistics. I don't know anything about what logistics means.
Right.
But I would imagine that if you have experience in logistics, you can always go back to it.
Yeah.
Logistics will be there in 10 years. That gym or that dream or that podcast or whatever it is that you want to chase now, man, there's times to do that. And there's times you can't do that. I can always go back. I have sales skills. I can always go to a car lot and start selling cars. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way.
Right.
There will always be car lots there that I can go sell cars at.
Yeah.
So why not go after everything I want to go after, knowing that if it don't work, then I'll go sell cars.
You're talking about don't be lazy and have that hustle. We was talking prior to the show about, the people that really go all in on what they're doing, say like multi-level marketing.
Right.
There's so much money out there if you just ask for it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just don't want to ask for it.
Right.
And we are those people.
Yeah.
I do not have a sponsor on this show because I don't want to ask for one.
Right.
Because I hate asking for money.
Yeah.
But I've got to.
Yeah. Jim Collins in that book, Good to Great, he calls it the big ask.
Yeah.
And he said, if you're not willing to make the big ask, and he uses this story, and it's true. If I came home tonight and my wife told me one of our kids is going to die by the end of the week, they have a rare disease and they're sick.
Yeah.
If you can't raise $1 million in the next 5 days, motherfucker, I'm going to raise $1 million in the next 5 days. I'm going to hit up every person I know. I'm going to cash in everything I can. And trust me, I don't mean that arrogantly. I'm going to have $1 million in a week. The problem is we don't look at our careers and our hustles with the same urgency. And I get that's a weird comparison.
No, you're right.
But we get comfortable. We get comfortable in that. I can't tell you how many people are crippled because they make $40,000 a year at a job. And I'm not pissing on $40,000 a year. I'm not.
No.
Man, that's awesome. But they'd rather be comfortable and make $40,000 a year instead of take a risk, do something they love and make $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
And at the end of my life, I don't want to be crippled by insurance or 401k or $40,000 a year.
Yeah.
I got insurance last year. It was the first time I had insurance in 9 years. Ain't that fucking crazy? I didn't have insurance for 9 years. Give a fuck. I didn't get sick.
Right.
Yeah, I made sure my kids had insurance. I made sure my wife had insurance.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to be crippled by a job to have insurance.
Right.
And to have, I've never worked for anybody else, so I don't have a 401k.
Right.
I hope I've made some wise investments over the years. And I'm in the process right now. I guess I can say this because it's illegal. I'm in the process right now of about to be investing into a weed farm in Illinois. And I'm hoping I'm making the right investments to pay off one day. If they don't pay off, they don't pay off. I guess I'll promote forever because I don't have a 401k.
Dude, so that went legal on January 1st.
It's insane.
By January 7th, and this is no lie, you can look it up, the state was out of weed.
Right.
They were out of weed. They were on weed back order. Had to shut down the dispensaries.
Right.
Had sold like $7.2 million worth of weed like in a day.
They're begging people to come there and start weed farms, and I've got a connection. And here's the beautiful thing about I don't know anything about weed. It's another industry that I haven't smoked weed since I was 18 years old. I'm 43 years old.
Yeah.
So, I'm not anti it. I just haven't done it.
Right.
So I don't know anything about it. But I know there's money in it. I've done my research. And I also know that eventually, which if it's Georgia, they'll probably be the 50th state to legalize it. And
No, Tennessee will.
Right. But when they do, those that are already doing it in other states are going to have the first run legally to do it here.
Right.
And so it seemed like a safe investment to me. And here's the deal. At the end of the day, if I lose the money, I lost some money. And don't get me wrong, I don't have just money to lose. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not in a position where I can lose money.
Right.
But the money, I lose it, I'll make it back. But what if that money comes back 100-fold?
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to take a risk, and I thought it was a safe risk. I know the guy. I trust the guy. The guy's got the connections.
Yeah.
He's already in that line of work as an entertainer. And
Right.
he's a rapper, and he knows that. He's kind of the weed rapper, for
Right.
lack of a better word.
Yeah.
And so I hope I've made the investments that one day will pay off for me. But I don't have a situation where I know when I turn 65, the 401k is kicking in.
Yeah.
We just love comfort, man.
No,
Fuck
everyone
comfort.
does. Yeah.
My luck is I'd have the 401k and die like the day before. And so,
Well, you got to think people like you get the salary job, and like I'm there. That's a 5-day a week. You get the same pay no matter what for the most part, maybe some commission. But what do you do on the weekends?
Right.
Most people don't do anything on the weekends.
Right.
I mean, I'd love to do nothing on the weekends. I mean, what if you don't have that salary? Well,
Right.
You got to work 7 days a week.
7 days a week.
You got to be grinding. You might be doing festivals on the weekend.
And because I do events, almost all of my events are weekends.
Right.
And so I don't. Everything I do is on the weekend. It is what it is. There's ways around that. When it's festival time and it's busy, I might not be home every night to have dinner, but I make sure I'm home every morning to have breakfast with the kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a different type of schedule. It'd be no different if someone was working third shift. I try to be very disciplined in making sure I'm taking time. A date with my wife and I today, turned our phones off, and we went to lunch.
Right.
Is that a date? Because it wasn't on Friday night. To us, it was a date. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I made sure because I knew the rest of the weekend. I have a funeral tomorrow I'm doing. Saturday's crazy. Sunday's nuts. I knew I was coming up here today. That's when we could fit it in this week because we went to lunch today. And during that time, when I turned my phone back on, our text thread that we're on had like 47 texts. You know what I mean? I'm just like, but that's cool. I didn't need to respond to those texts. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it was time for my wife. So I make sure I get that time. It just might not be the normal time.
Yeah.
And so it is what it is. But there's no excuses. And even sleep, like, it's a big deal. My wife likes me to be in bed when she goes to sleep.
Yeah.
And so I get in bed, and she goes to sleep, and then I go hustle. I get back. Because I don't need a lot of sleep. I operate in about 5 hours a night sleep. It's just I just don't need sleep.
Yeah.
I never have. So instead of sitting around and watching that documentary or sitting around and binge watching Netflix, what do I want to do? Do I want to binge watch Netflix or do I want to be able to live my dream? And so I go after it. And so it works out really well. You find time to do what's important to you.
Right.
And so so many people tell me they don't have time to do anything, but then they tell me, man, did you watch that series? I binge watched 13 episodes this weekend.
Yep.
Well, then you had fucking time.
Yeah, you did.
You know.
A Netflix series is 8 to 10 hours.
Right.
Even a documentary is 3.
Right. I'm even trying to be more disciplined on, which is weird because I'm in the promoting business and social media is such a vital part of my life. And I've been even debating in the last few days about taking it off my phone and just being very focused. Because here's the deal. I can post to social media 5 times a day without being on social media all day. I always use the excuse, I'm on social media, it's my job. No, it's not. I'm hitting refresh on my timeline, That's not doing anything for my business.
Yeah.
That's not me promoting Southern Honor Wrestling. It's not me promoting Barbecue and Brews. It's not me promoting here soon the RFL. It's not me promoting Black Sheep, which is something I've been wanting to get going forever. And because
You got to get that going. You've kept talking about it.
Because I waste too much fucking time on social media and justify, that's how I promote my business. You can post your shit and not be on social media.
Yeah.
And I
they
think
have
you
apps.
actually do a pretty good job with that.
Yeah.
You post and get off. I post and then fucking read for 45 minutes what someone had for lunch today. Who gives a
Right.
fuck what they had for lunch today?
The one thing I wish I would do better, and comes back again to the Grant Cardone's 10 times. This is fresh in my mind because I just read or listened to the book. But he said, "Hey man, I need to be wallpaper where everyone is." That's his goal. He wants
Yes.
to be in the room where everyone is. So how you do that? Well, social media now you can try your best. So what he does is he posts twice an hour, every hour throughout the day. Now it might not be him posting it, but he has hired people to post twice an hour on every platform all throughout the day.
And here's the reality of that. It would take some discipline, but you can schedule your post.
How do you do that?
I'll show you. It's right there on your thing. So really, technically, you could take 30 minutes in the morning and make 20 posts.
Yeah.
I mean, what's it take, a fucking minute to write a post?
Yeah.
You know? And schedule your post for the rest of the day and be off of there.
I know you can do that on Facebook. It has to be a Facebook page. It can't be your personal account.
Oh, I thought you could post on
No.
your first.
So on the 60-minute Broadway page,
Yeah.
I messed with that a little bit just to see if it would work because I thought after I read the book or after I listened to it, I wanted to do that. Now I think on other platforms you can have that happen.
Well, another thing you could do too is, especially on Twitter. So you can have your Twitter, when you post to it, goes to your Facebook and goes to your Instagram. Well, you can post to Twitter from text. So you ain't got to log into the app. Text the number,
Yeah.
post it, and get off.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to experiment with things like that
Right.
and trying to get better at it and trying to be more disciplined. And my new schedule, I feel a lot more focused on my new schedule.
Yeah.
And because I do feel like I've given myself, I don't need to get on ESPN now. I don't need to go check Facebook. I was just on it for a fucking hour, wasting time. But who cares? It was my time. I can do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And so I think everything goes back to discipline and consistency. Just being consistent. And I think it's one thing I like about the when you were doing the 60 Minutes, you said, I'm doing this for a year. You got to do it. I see so many guys that don't understand the value of social media.
Yeah.
And they'll do it for 2 days, not see any results, and they'll stop. Motherfucker, you did it for 2 days.
Yeah.
Like, do that shit. Get up a following. Go after it.
Yeah.
Get your hustle on. And believe in what you're doing.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm at a weird stage on Facebook right now. Like, I get there's Twitter and I get there's Instagram. But at the end of the day, for me, because I'm so city-specific, the large majority of people in Canton are on Facebook.
Right.
There's some on Twitter. There's some on Instagram. But the people are on Facebook. That's where they are.
Right.
And so that's where I have to be. And but it's just being consistent. I'm at that weird stage now where I've maxed out my friends and I need to go to a page.
Yeah.
They used to have it where you could transfer all your friends to likes, and you can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to start over. And so literally today, I took about 30 minutes, and I went to my friends list and typed in S, and it shows all the names. In the S's, there was 25 people that I was friends with, quote unquote, that had inactive accounts now.
Yeah.
So I just went and deleted all those, opened up 25 spots.
Right.
You know, tomorrow I'm going to do the T's.
Yeah.
You know, and open up more spots where I can add more people because my queue is just full of people
Right.
that I can't add because I'm at my friend limit.
Yeah.
Or I got to post something controversial where 100 of them drop me.
Right.
You know.
Well, see, I've seen that happen with a 60-minute Broadway. Like we might gain 100 followers in a month, but we lost 150.
Right.
You know, but that happens.
Yeah. You've got the back door is always going to be there in any hustle, and I think with wrestling, there's a lot of Southern Honor fans, but here's the reality: wrestling is low on their totem pole. They're not coming to every show every month.
Yeah.
And so your front door's always got to be bigger than your back door.
Right.
And we had a guy at our last show and hadn't seen him in about 4 months. And I was like, man, I thought you'd give it. He goes, man, I love this thing. He goes, it just hasn't worked out the last 4 months where I could come between family and work and kids. And we think about is wrestling.
Right.
Our hustle. This guy's got 1,000 fucking things going on in his life.
Yeah.
So that front door's always got to be big. And I've also learned, and this is hard because we think we annoy people, but at the end of the day, when you're sick of talking about it, a lot of times people are hearing it for the first time. I think I shared this story. If it wasn't with you, it was someone the other day. I pastor a church still on Sunday mornings.
Yeah.
And the church meets in the building where I do wrestling and MMA and concerts and everything.
Yeah, it's funny.
So when you walk into the church on Sunday morning, there's wrestling posters up. There's everything. I talk about wrestling from the stage. I'm real life when I preach.
Right.
So after the show, or after church, he's like, wrestling here? We've been wrestling for 16 months. We just won Georgia Promotion of the Year. I talk about wrestling every week. He goes, I love wrestling. When's the next show? Motherfucker, you're looking at the poster. But how do you not know wrestling meets here?
Yeah.
Like, he's got 1,000 things. He's going through a divorce. He just changed jobs. He's traveling all the time. Wrestling is so low on his totem pole.
Yeah.
Coming into church is an accomplishment to him on Sunday. He's not paying attention to the posters that are hanging up in that building.
Right.
And so if he doesn't know it, it just reminded me again, you've got to saturate and saturate and saturate and saturate. Because when you're sick of talking about it, chances are most people are just hearing it for the first time.
That reminds me. So, like, people get their minds clouded. I mean, think about this with thoughts. So, the other day at work we was talking about it, like how many thoughts does the human have on a day?
Right.
Dude, it's like 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day.
Right.
That's like 30 to 50 thoughts a minute.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Well, I'll give you an example. So when I was
And most of them are negative, by the way. Go ahead.
Oh,
though.
of course. When I was 20 years old, 21 years old, I moved to Ames, Iowa.
Yeah.
I had never heard of Ames, Iowa. Didn't know anything about Ames, Iowa. But all of a sudden, when this job opportunity opened, I remember driving down the road and looking at the tractor trailer next to me, and it said Ames, Iowa on it. And then I remember that year, all of a sudden I noticed Iowa State. So we chalk it up as it was just meant to be everywhere I looked was Ames, Iowa. No, motherfucker, Ames, Iowa was probably everywhere before. It just wasn't in my brain, and I
Right.
wasn't noticing it.
Yeah.
I used to own a roofing company, do insurance claims on that. And my wife was like, how do you notice roofing signs and this and that? Because I did it forever. I never noticed a roofing sign in my life
Yeah.
before I did roofing. But I was in that industry now. So now I notice I notice a roofing truck now.
Yeah.
I don't notice a plumbing truck. I've never been in that industry.
Right.
You open your mind to something and you notice that it's all the way around you anyway.
Right.
So if people aren't thinking about wrestling or MMA or a concert I'm putting on or whatever, like I had a good friend of mine one time be like, man, I wish there was just some place to go listen to great 80s music. Motherfucker, I put on 80s events 4 times a year that are huge. How do you not know that I put those on? Because in his grand scheme of things, he's not thinking about
Right.
it.
He's not worried about
Yeah,
it.
you have to saturate. I saw something one time that says people have to see something 7 times before it computes the first time.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any truth to that.
Right.
But just hitting up, whether it's Facebook or social media or a poster or a postcard or an invite. And that's why I've been very intentional lately about actually just DMing people. Just, hey, copy and paste, man. Hey, I'm doing this event. We'd love to see you there. I'm doing this event. We'd love to see you there. It's amazing, that personal interaction, the results I see from it,
Right.
even more so than just some generic advertising. But we're just lazy. We don't want to do that. We want to post something and think it's done. We want to get in a wrestling ring and wrestle and do nothing else and think people notice it. We want to go out and wash a car one time and think everyone knows we wash cars for a living. No, they don't. They're not thinking about their cars getting washed.
Yeah.
You know, and so
Or people expect someone else to make them known.
yes, very much so. Or we think talent's enough. I
Yeah.
tell people all the time, you and me are a little bit different. You're probably a naturally talented person, like in the gym, athletically. I'm not.
Right.
It's just not. That's not my skill set.
Yeah.
And so many times someone's naturally gifted at something, they think talent alone will get them there. And a lot of times how many times have we heard, man, growing up, we had a guy when I was in high school named Timmy Smith. Timmy Smith was amazing. Timmy Smith was the guy from my area that was going to grow up and go to the NFL.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The problem with Timmy Smith was the only thing he was good at in life was running a football on Friday night.
Right.
He had no character. If you're listening to this, Timmy, I'm sorry. He was always in trouble. He was dumb as a box of fucking rocks.
Yeah.
He couldn't get into college to save his life. Back then, there was no social. He didn't know how to brand himself. He didn't know how to do anything. I don't know what he's doing now. Shit, he might be a millionaire, or more likely he's probably selling drugs on the street corner somewhere.
Right.
And because talent alone's not enough. You know, how many times if you go up north, the best basketball players are the playground basketball players.
Yeah.
You know,
Or in prison.
Or if so-and-so would have made it, boy. Well, they couldn't make it because they weren't fucking smart enough to make it.
Yeah.
They weren't willing to put in the other work to make it.
Right.
How many times in wrestling have we talked about people that are like, man, this guy was the best wrestler I ever saw.
Yeah.
I don't know how he didn't make it. Here's why he didn't make it. Because at the end of the day, talent's not enough.
No.
Get your ass out there and learn every aspect of everything. I've proven that in wrestling. It's got to piss every wrestling promotion in Georgia off that I'm a year and a half in, and we do it better than anyone. I know the least amount of wrestling than anybody in our state, probably. I don't know much about wrestling. I don't know much about booking wrestling, storylines in wrestling, but that's not how you grow a company, knowing about wrestling.
Right.
So
No, I'm with you. And I like the fact that you don't know much about wrestling.
Yeah.
I think that's why it makes you the best promoter.
Yeah, I don't want to know about
Because you know promoting.
it. Yeah.
That you stay in your lane.
Yeah, I always tell people it's the same bones, just put different skin on it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're going to do with the MMA.
Exactly. That's where I was going with this. I think MMA, we don't know much about it as far as, like, I'm not a fighter, you're not a fighter, but we want to make it work.
Yeah, I'll give you an example, and I don't know, we're probably limited on time. So another venture I had one time is I got this wild hair up my ass to open up a thrift store.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I'll open up a thrift store. And so I'd never been in a thrift store in my life.
Right.
And so I started to go visit thrift stores. And I walked in this thrift store and talking to this guy one time, and this place was the most depressing place I'd ever been in my life. And I was talking to the owner, and he was bitching about business and this and that and complaining. And I said, I'm thinking about opening a thrift store. He said, well, if you ever need a consultant, man, I'd be glad for you to hire me, and I'll do some consulting for you. And I thought to myself, what are you going to teach me? You just told me how bad business was, how much you hate it, how miserable this place is. This place is dirty. It's nasty. And I said all this to him.
Right.
He said, that's just the way you do thrift stores. Then maybe that's why they're not working.
Right.
Because everyone's doing it this way. So when I owned this thrift store, it was fucking nice. You came in. I didn't want to look like a thrift store. I wanted to look like Target. We only took nice stuff. We made sure the floors were polished. We made sure the place smelled clean. Thrift stores are nasty and they smell horrible.
Yeah.
And I made a ton of money in that thrift store. And I hated feeling like I was in prison and having to be there every day.
Right.
That's why, we sold it. And but I didn't want to do thrift stores like everyone else did thrift stores.
Yeah.
Fuck that. I didn't want to know about thrift stores. Another thing I did, I opened up a motorcycle shop one time. I didn't know anything about motorcycles. But I had this thrift store, and I had this empty space.
Right.
And this guy came one time and said, can I put my motorcycle out here for sale? And it sold like in 3 hours. And so I opened a thing called Consignment Motorsports, and I started selling motorcycles and four-wheelers all on consignment. I had no money locked up in it. I don't need to know the quote-unquote way to sell motorcycles. All the motorcycle shops in town were going out of business.
Right.
This is a new way for me to do it, and I made a ton of money doing it because so many times the way it's always been done, everybody's fucking miserable doing it that way. Bring some fresh eyes in.
Right.
Some fresh. I think wrestling was that way. Wrestling was stale.
Yeah.
That's the quote-unquote way you do it. No, just fucking go and do it.
Yeah.
I think this podcast is an example of that. I mean, I think, there's very few, especially when it was more of a wrestling-focused podcast.
Right.
There was very few wrestling podcasts where a guy was just going to shoot on every fucking body.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's not the rules. You did it, and look what the ratings did.
Right.
It worked.
Yeah. I mean, that was the biggest shows. The biggest shows where I was up here running my mouth and
Yeah.
saying things that I wanted to say. What's that say over there? Anyways, but I enjoyed this, the way the podcast is now. I liked the wrestling. I did. But it was getting stale talking about wrestling every week. Because like I've said it before, I like wrestling, but I really don't.
Right.
Not that much. It's not like my number one passion. My number one passion is me and my projects and my fitness, and wrestling is a part of that, and my career and my goals. So I'll tie all that into a show, and it's very like Rogan based. I don't want to have a show where I have like, okay, Gary, so I have this question for you, and go. And here's this question, and go. And none of them make sense. I just want to get up here and be able to talk to somebody for, an hour and a half, 2 hours that's been successful at some things that I've never been able to do. And I want to bring that to Chattanooga, and I want to interview as many people in Chattanooga as I possibly can, and do some wrestling.
Right.
Because wrestling's like 10% of what I like to do. So 10% of the time on the podcast, I'll talk wrestling.
Yeah, and I think that you will actually see that drop more and more because as your audience grows nationally, you can't get on here and talk about Georgia wrestling.
Right.
Yeah, like, who gives a fuck in Mississippi? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think as your thing grows, I think Rogan's a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of times Rogan has someone on there that I don't give two fucks about.
Right.
And I catch myself listening because here's the deal. People love conversations. I never feel like Rogan's interviewing someone.
It's conversation.
I feel like he's having a conversation with someone. And what do we love to do? We love to go in a bar and grab a beer
and talk.
And people love conversations.
Right. Yeah.
Is that the code for us to get off here?
I don't know. Ethan's giving all kinds of air signals over there. We're good?
Yeah,
okay.
We're good.
All right. Well,
I haven't threatened Ethan today. It's been a long. Normally I threaten him.
Ethan has done a great job the past few weeks.
Except these signs he's holding up.
Dude, he created.
But did you notice the minute Sting walked in here, shit started going off in our ears?
I know,
and
it started
stuff went
going off.
sideways?
Yeah. It's Sting.
But so Ethan created the Chat with Gunner logo.
Yeah, he did good.
Put that together. Pretty good. I was like, hey man, I want it to look just like University of Tennessee Chattanooga with my name kinda. And he put that together. He's I really appreciate him. He's done a great job of being here consistently as much as he's here as much as I have been here.
Right.
For on time, helping me put this thing together because it wouldn't be up if it wasn't for him.
Yeah.
I would figure it out eventually, but it wouldn't be.
You got to have a great team around you.
You got to have a great team, and he can do everything that I can't, so that's perfect. But I do have aspirations for this podcast to be bigger than what I think most people think it should be.
And I I've done a lot of research on podcasts, and it's amazing how many podcasts by quote unquote not famous people. I mean, when you're a famous person and you start a podcast, it just fucking is what it is.
Yeah, because you're following.
But a lot of the podcasts that have taken off now that started as a local podcast,
Yeah.
because they were consistent.
Yeah.
I don't know how. I've got a buddy of mine. I love him to death. He started about 5 podcasts. No one's listening. Motherfucker, you're 5 episodes in. Like right when you start to get a little bit of traction,
Right.
you're bored with it and move on because you're not getting the results you want.
Yeah.
And that's what I loved. The very first time I ever listened to you, you said, I'm doing this for a year. I was like, no, that's interesting. He's going to do it for a year. And no matter what, no matter how many people tune in, no matter how many people follow, and you've watched week after week on that Facebook Live, it went up. It went up because you got better. It went up because you were consistent. And those 10 people told 10 people. Then those 20 people told 20 people.
Yeah.
And those 40 people told 40 people. And those 80 people. And we live in a microwave society. We want everything immediately.
Yeah. I do too.
Trust me, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Me too. And but something like that has to be a grassroots effort, and you just got to pound it out. I've been wanting to start a podcast. For a matter of fact, in my office this week, we've been working on building the studio out and getting the right equipment in there, and hopefully by next week it'll be there. And I even made a comment to the guy. I said, I'm not even going to look at the stats for the first 3 months. I don't even want to know them. Because I don't want to know that one person's listening.
Yeah.
I'm just going to pump them out, and try to be as consistent as I can in pumping them out.
Right. And that's what I'm going to do. Like, I don't want to say I'm going to do 2 a week because I think 2 a week is a little bit too much content for me right now. I'd be just rambling. 1 a week is good. With the 60-Minute Broadway, it was great because I had live on Thursday at 8 p.m. on Facebook. Come check us out. It made me be here. Now we're recording them and putting them up on YouTube, then ripping the audio and putting them on Buzzsprout, which goes to Apple Podcasts and the different podcast platforms. But I'm getting, it might be 250 views on YouTube right now, but it's also 100 views on Buzzsprout and 100 views on Apple Podcasts. So eventually that'll add up, and we'll see which one takes off as the main one. I want it to be Apple Podcasts, and we was talking about this earlier. Right. I read an article from Medium.com, and it said that less than 80% of total podcasts get even a rating, period, on the Apple Podcast. So I'm already in the 20% because I have 5 5-star ratings. And then I think it's like once you get to like the hundreds to thousands, you're in the, like, I want to say like the top 5%. And if you get over 10,000, you're in the 0.01% with the JRE, the Rogan Experience. Like, it just takes a couple thousand and you're in the top. And that means you're on the
and
front
that's not
page.
a lot of people.
You're trending on Apple Podcasts.
It's not a lot of people.
No.
We think it is, but it's not.
No.
And I think one of the things you've done beautiful by setting it up with the name Chat with Gunner, if the time came. Right now you're limited because you have to come in the studio.
Yeah.
The reality is you don't got to come in the studio to do podcasts anymore.
No.
So if the time comes, you build a little home studio, you come in here and do the weekly show. The beautiful thing about a chat is you got a 5-minute thought, boom, I'm going to bust it out. I love that Eddie Frisella does that. He has his one podcast a week that's always going to be 2 hours.
Yeah.
But throughout the week, he's posting 10-minute thoughts, 15-minute thoughts, because it's a matter of, I'm going to record this real quick. I got this thought today.
Yeah.
Boom. And I'm going to upload it. And, a chat doesn't always have to be 2 hours. So I think as you grow and your schedule changes and you have more flexibility, you can add more a week if you feel like it. That doesn't have to be this format.
Right.
It can be, it's going to be a rant by Gunner. We have a friend, Steve Platinum, and I think he's up to about 10 different programs now on his YouTube.
It's right.
And he doesn't do them consistently. It's Be Kind reviews and what I can't even fucking remember the names of them all. This P list and it's the rumors and deep dives or whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome having different things because the mood strikes you. A rant by Gunner. Something happened on politics. You want to rant on it, fucking rant on it.
Right.
You put a 10-minute podcast out. It don't have to be an hour podcast, and that's a chat.
Yeah. Another thing I was telling Ethan about when we started this was take the podcast and the way Rogan does it, or the main podcast do it. They record 2 hours or whatever, and then they are doing the like the little clips, the JRE clips or whatever.
Right.
So
people love digestible news. They love little bites here and there.
Right.
A 2-minute hit in your story.
Yeah.
Or a 2-minute clip here, or and of course that when we're all volunteering our time, that gets hard to do.
Right.
But it can happen as you grow and do better.
Yeah. So, man, this was fun for the most part.
We just
Anything
rambled.
else you want to ramble about?
I don't know that we talked a lot about hustling. Maybe we'll
How
get more
long have we
focused
been-
next time.
How long have we been on?
Hour and 10 minutes.
Hour and 10 minutes.
That's
All
not
right.
bad. That's it. That's listenable.
Are you good with everything?
I'm good with everything.
All right.
Again, I think we got to get out of the habit of just rambling. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll be more focused next
I
time.
know.
Actually talk about different things. But there's so much just shit people need to hear.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about me coming on a little bit more, maybe every couple of months or whatever. And if people ever want to talk about anything, I don't know that they're going to, on a local scale, they're going to find two bigger hustlers than you and me.
Right. No, I agree. I know there's a bunch of hustlers out here in town, but as far as like on my level,
Right.
I would say, I'm doing a pretty good job.
Yeah. And then also are going to be like, man, I fucking hustled in this area and it sucked and I failed.
Yeah.
I think the most frustrating thing to me about like all the names,
Right.
I want to hear where you fucking failed too, because I know you failed along the way.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, I want to know where you screwed up along the way, and that's why I loved, man. I don't know if I told you this, man. I loved the first episode you did
Yeah.
on addiction.
Right.
Dude, how can you be more raw than that?
Yeah.
Boom, here's where I fucked up and got addicted to this, and bam.
Right.
And I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
You know?
There's gonna be more of that. I want to do like some episodes where it's almost like a classroom where
Yeah.
I'm just kind of talking to the camera. If
Right.
it was like kind of like a little confessional
Yeah.
of different things. I've got a few things out there, but I want to spread them out. I don't want them to happen,
Yeah.
too close to each
Yeah,
other.
absolutely.
I want to be educational when I can about things that I've learned about. I think that you don't stop learning once you finish high school or college or whatever you choose to do. I've learned more post graduating. So as far as about like diet and nutrition and exercise, man, I have literally 15 years of pounding the books
Right.
on that. So it's somebody can ask me a question and I can give you a pretty educational answer about it, and I can inform you a little bit, and if I don't, I can research just one or two words and I can put together something for you real quick.
Yeah.
So I want to do stuff like that. But thanks for coming on, man.
Man, I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, we'll do it again. I want to get you in, maybe once a month, once every 2 months.
We'll do it,
and
whatever
talk
you
about
wanna
some
do.
things. I want to talk about the MMA stuff when we release that for sure.
Yeah, I think we're going to release the official stuff on here
Yeah.
when the time.
Right.
There's a lot of legalities involved in that.
Yeah.
A lot of athletic commission stuff that you got to have your ducks in a row before you start
Right.
making announcements. We were hoping to be able to make one tonight,
Yeah, I know.
and
That's
I don't
all
think
right.
everything lined up for that. But I think we'll do the live thing here and the date here, and I think it's gonna be kick ass.
Well, Rogan does a fight companion
yeah,
and MMA type shows.
Yeah.
So I think that once we get to the point
We'll
where
do those.
the RFL kicks off and we have a fight card, we have a
Yeah.
13 fight card, we go through and we give
Right.
everybody a breakdown of
and
it.
who's
Nobody's doing that.
Nobody's doing
Nobody's
that shit.
doing
And I
that.
think that's the key, man. Perception is we can do a whole show on this, man. Perception is reality,
Yeah.
even if it's not true. The way people perceive you is the way they'll receive you.
Right.
And we treat that promotion like it is the fucking UFC from day one. That's what we did with Southern Honor Wrestling.
Yeah.
I treated that shit like it was a top of the line promotion from day one.
Right.
And it felt like a top of the line promotion from fake it till you fucking make it. And we
Yeah.
faked it till we made it. And we did shit no one else was doing. And we'll do shit with the MMA that no one else is doing. And it's one thing to talk shit in wrestling because it's all fake. I want to be careful talking shit in MMA because the guy can really kick my ass.
Oh yeah, I'll
But-
be a little careful.
Yeah, but I do plan on coming and dominating
Yeah, me too.
in that, and because that's what I'm not going to do something if I can't be the best at it.
Right. I'm with you.
It's going to be fun.
All right, man. Well, everybody, thanks for listening. That was Gary Lamb. That was our Don't Be a Bitch episode, talking about a little bit of hustle and motivation and grinding. Just want to remind you, please go to Apple Podcast if you have an iPhone, which I hope is the majority of us because that's a lot better than Samsung. So if you have an iPhone, go to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review. Maybe write something nice. And if you need to write something mean, you can go ahead and do that too. As long as I get 100 reviews within the next 6 weeks, I'm cool with it. Go to YouTube, Chat with Gunner, subscribe, share it. It takes like 3 seconds to share this with a friend. And guess what? We talked about the pyramid effect, and you share with one person, he shares with one, and it adds up to 2. Let's do a little bit of that. Let's throw a bunch of shares into the funnel, and let's help grow this thing from the ground up. We are at the very bottom, and we're going to make our way straight to the top. So I'm excited to do this for a year. Next week on the podcast, I'm going to do a solo episode where I talk a little bit about fasting. Right now, I'm currently trying to lose 25 pounds in the next 6 days, and I'm on a pretty good path right now. I think I'm going to hit it, doing like my own little weight cut. I'm inspired by UFC 246. I want to see if I can hit 200 pounds. So I'll let you guys know next Thursday if I hit it and what I did and how I did it, because I will. All right. So everybody, thanks for listening. Again, go to Apple Podcast, 5-star review, Chat with Gunner, YouTube, Chat with Gunner, subscribe, share. Thank you. Bye.